Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we've got something special. It is partially in universe and partially meta and partially way out of universe. There are very few in-universe theories today, just some dry chuckling, some egg on my face, and a very curious urban legend. Now, some of you may remember the analysis video I did a while back. I was particularly eager to do it because I spotted what I thought was a subtle clue to hint at a deeper mystery. To wit, the corporate inspector Barbara, Phil's old friend, old flame, and old glitch tech partner, was clearly dressed in a government uniform, not a corporate uniform as she should have been. Specifically, she was dressed in a Class A uniform for the National Park Service. This was especially interesting that it was a National Park Service uniform because that uniform is very often the first mental image of the federal government for the target demographic of glitch techs, that is, small children and their parents. That meant that the overtones of government involvement were very deliberate. The creators wanted you to be thinking about the government in this episode, or at least feeling the feeling you get when you think of government. So I took that idea and stretched it out into a tidy little theory. I analyzed her headband, I analyzed her jacket, I analyzed her skirt and her shoes. Oh, I analyzed the color and the texture. Oh, how I stretched it and massaged it. I got so much mileage out of it, I was quite pleased. You see, I was so sure of this little Easter egg I had noticed. It was subtle, but I had sniffed it out and articulated this deliberate suggestion of government intervention. And in doing this, I was a living example of that old Sesame Street joke. You know the one where Sherlock Hemlock, the world's greatest detective, is crawling around Bert and Ernie's apartment, scouting out the tiniest clues with a magnifying glass. He describes in detail how a good detective must pay attention to every little detail. Meanwhile, the largest, loudest, and most obtrusive of the Sesame Street monsters are sneaking around him, preparing a surprise birthday party for one of the roommates, and Sherlock Hemlock is so caught up looking for tiny details that he utterly misses it. And who was my cookie monster skulking around the apartment of my imagination? It was a mysterious and frustrating urban legend that I should have known about, but I didn't. It was a reference to something in-universe that dragged me down a rabbit hole of research and sent my natural paranoia dancing wildly. It was the reference to Bolypius in the episode Tutorial Mode. First, a fun meta possibility that's not quite in universe but is tied to the show itself. With the dawn of streaming services and the steady march of digital technology, a new possibility has arisen in entertainment: editing long-form video media after it has been posted. The most notable example of this was the post-release editing of the musical Cats after it had been released in the theaters. They fixed several problems, but the most notable of which was they put fur on furless paws and then simply resent the digital versions and updated the hard drives that the theater had. While this is a pretty harmless and useful feature for theaters to have, it does raise some very 1984 Records Department vibes of the party being able to rewrite history in real time with so much being digitally stored. How is this relevant? When the first several times I watched Tutorial Mode, I did not hear the reference to Polybius. This is not in of itself anything interesting. Your brain often forgets, or rather simply fails to record things when you hear them for the first time. That is why fans will rewatch videos again and again. The human brain needs a frame of reference to understand something and needs to be able to understand something in order to remember it. You need an existing neural pathway to tack the new stimulus onto in order to build strong neural pathways for it. That's why it's so much easier to remember a name that is common in your culture than a name that is uncommon in your culture. A common name has 1,000 memories to attach to. A name you've never heard before might not have anything to attach to. That is why you remember so little or to nothing from your infancy. Once out of your mother's womb, you have very little frame of reference save for your mother's and father's voices. That is why most people's memories are usually faint and vague recollections of your mother saying something to you. There was one study that showed that newborn babies did respond to bedtime stories that their mother had read them in the womb. For the first 6 months after birth, you have the ability to learn new things, and then you lose it as your brain continues to develop into a child and then into adult. That is why it's so hard for adults to learn new languages, and is the neural logic behind why adults have accents. If you don't learn a language before puberty, you will always have an accent no matter how hard you work. As a full-grown adult who has never heard of Bolypius or Polybius, it made sense that a one-word reference at the tail end of a show would go right over my head. It wouldn't even impact me. I technically probably probably heard it, but as my brain had nothing to latch it onto, I instantly forgot it until I saw it written out in the comments, saw it discussed, and then went back and rewatched the episode, deliberately listening for that term that I had seen spelled out. I wouldn't have thought twice about not hearing it the first time, except there was, completely unconnected, there was an odd post in the Reddit forums. Someone was asking if they were going back and editing the shows on Netflix, because they clearly remembered Me-K.O calling someone a muggle and giving a karate yell at a certain point, and when they rewatched the episode, that didn't happen. Again, this might just be misremembering, but there is the fact that the show and Netflix did, in fact, edit the episodes at least once. When the episodes for Glitch Checks were first uploaded, only the standard definition episodes were uploaded. They had to re-upload the higher definition episodes later. Not quite an edit, but a changing of media after the fact. Also, there might be a reason for them to edit out the Muggle reference, because J.K. Rowling's legal team might be feeling particularly litigious, given the beating she's been getting recently. So while it's still unlikely that they were randomly post-editing the episodes, it means they had opportunity, means, and motivation. However, there is another possible motivation for the Glitch Tech creators to post-facto edit the episodes. The first 10 episodes have a running theme of memory resetting, system resetting, and all of the episodes have a running theme of this odd, creepy duality. To start off with, the bright and cheerful colors and the attitudes of the main characters suggest a My Little Pony type children's show. However, the things they say, see, and do suggest a Black Mirror Matrix level of dark horror. The town of Bailey is just around the corner from a beach, which should give it a feel of wide open spaces, but the art makes it feel oddly claustrophobic. Me-K.O's family is half Asian and half Celtic. Mick talks like a jerk, but his actions say that he's doing his best to teach and protect Fives and Me-K.O. The show made a huge deal about how Mitch stole the win from Five, but Mitch didn't steal the win from Five, Phil did, and the show clearly shows that. Barbara, the corporate representative, came in dressed like a government agent, but talking like a corporate agent. Nearly every level of this show has some odd dual contrast that makes you question your perception. What better way to elevate that experience of a strange, distrustful duality to a higher meta level than in post-facto editing the show in little ways? So then this might allow you to post-facto edit the show in a big way. This style of storytelling isn't without precedence. A sort of proto-example is J.R.R. Tolkien editing later editions of The Hobbit with the excuse that Bilbo lied about how he got the ring to bring into alignment the larger world of The Lord of the Rings, a sort of in-universe post-facto editing. This concept of post-facto editing has been referenced in many science fiction works. Usually it is the work of a governmental political party trying to cover something up, or it is a glitch in reality that reveals that they're in a Matrix-like world. It has been actively used in several webcomics to great storytelling effect, where they actually went back and edited the past webcomics, so when you linked to them, you'd question your own memory. Up till now, only the simple format of webcomics allowed for this active storytelling retconning, but with the rise of the age of digital streaming, the editing, especially of sound and words, actively retconning is not only possible, but very plausible. And if the show is going to make a meta-reference to a mind-altering video game, only editing in the reference later would be an excellent bit of meta-marketing. Messing with the minds of the hardcore fans who are watching from the beginning would be a genius stroke. Hardcore fans would notice and tell people, but those people who are not hardcore fans would brush it off as simply the natural fanatic nature of fans, which would in turn stoke the fire of conspiracy within the fandom. But still in all, it is much more likely that I just failed to compute the reference to Bolypius in the first time I watched the episode, and the other watchers simply didn't hear the karate yell and the Muggle references the second time around. Now, onto the really weird bit. This show is already Matrix and Black Mirror-like enough without the addition of an urban legend that claims the government was running mental experiments on arcade goers in the years just prior to and after me being born. It is simply that I don't know if the Polybius reference is a real urban legend or not. Now, real urban legend is something of a stretch of a definition. No matter how or where an urban legend was born, once it worms its way into the minds of the population, it is as real as far as urban legends go. It's as real as any other urban legend. But the thing is, if this Polybius urban legend actually did exist between the years of 2000 to 2008, I should have heard and understood the reference the first time I heard it. I should have known about this urban legend, but I didn't. And that is very, very odd. Exactly why it is so odd that I didn't know about this urban legend is a whole nother video unto itself, and this video is already getting long enough. So, that will be our next videos. So what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Is Glitch Text post facto editing the episodes to give us an even creepier, more exciting experience? Are we mishearing and projecting our own issues onto these episodes? Do you think the government really did send out mind-altering video games onto the hapless population of New York in the mid-'80s? Does this have anything to do with how I turned out the way I did? We will explore this and more in our next episode. Check out the link to the Teespring store below for some Weird Human merch. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment if you have an answer for any of my questions. I'm really curious about these. Peace out, my wonderful viewers.
Green Meadows first, where the waters cut through, down her wild mountains and canyons she flew.